BD here, and right now I'm joined by an epic special guest. He is one of the most talented filmmakers and actors on the planet. You may know him as Caesar from Planet of the Apes, Gollum from Lord of the Rings, Ulysses Klaue from Avengers: Age of Ultron and Black Panther, or as Richard Nealon from the hit film 13 Going on 30, underrated gem. The director of Venom: Let There Be Carnage, Mr. Andy Serkis. Andy, thanks for coming on, man.
Thank you for having me. Thank you. Richard Nealon, yeah, of course.
That's right. Yeah. I'm sure you're getting a lot of questions about the 13 Going on 30 sequel all day. You know what I mean?
You'll be surprised. You'll be surprised.
Well, welcome to the show, man. Congrats on Venom: Let There Be Carnage. The fans are loving it, and it's been super fun to see everybody's reactions. So I want to start for you kind of at the beginning, because this isn't your first Marvel venture. You know what I mean? You were Klaue on screen in a pair of Marvel Studios films, and then you go behind the camera for Venom: Let There Be Carnage. What has the experience been like behind the camera for a Marvel film?
I mean, it's been extraordinary, really, from the word go. I love the Marvel family. They're they're so intelligent the way they put their films together, and you know, this has been no exception. The way that they've worked with Sony on this has been great. And so, I mean, this all started, to go right back to the beginning, this all started prior to the first Venom movie, in fact, with Tom Hardy calling me and saying, "Look, Andy, I'm going to be doing this character in a Marvel picture, and it's a CG character, and I'm thinking, you know, might be using performance capture. Can I come down to your facility and do some work with you?" And I said, "Yeah, sure, come down and we'll experiment and try some stuff out." Anyway, he didn't. I didn't hear anything more from him. Venom 1 came out. It was a huge success. I loved his performance in it. And then a couple of years later, you know, when they were looking for someone to helm the second movie, Tom rings me up and he says, "Andy, look, we're thinking about who's going to direct the second movie, and we all would love for you to chuck your hat in the ring." So I mean, Tom and I have wanted to work together for years, as I've really respected him as an actor for all of the things that he's done. He's one of the most fearless kind of, you know, brilliant physical, you know, embodying actors, transformative actors, and I think also we have a very similar sensibility in terms of the choices that we make with characters that we like to play. So it felt like a really great match. And then I read the script that Kelly Marcel had written and Tom had been part of the story creation with, and it was a joy to come on board, and it's been a fantastic experience, the whole thing.
I love how that comes together. It's cool that I didn't know you guys had those conversations that long ago. I also, I noticed, you know, Woody's involved, and you worked with Woody Harrelson on the Planet of the Apes films. Did that help convince you at all?
Oh, of course. I mean, who wouldn't want to work with Woody? Woody is one of those extraordinary actors. There's, you know, he's just a brilliant human being, first and foremost, and an exceptional actor who is able to, he's able to play the darkness of Cletus Cassidy and yet play vulnerability and humor in equal measure and completely entrance you with that. And so it was I knew it was going to be a special ride working with him again. I mean, obviously, like you say, I'd worked with him on the Apes movies, and looking into his eyes as Caesar and the character that he was playing in that, you know, we became quite good friends, and so it was lovely to be able to you know, to take that further into this movie. So it was wonderful. Yeah.
So the first one you met, I mean, the first Venom movie was a huge success. Fans loved it. It made a bunch of money. It clearly warranted a sequel. What did you look at from the first one and decide, like, these are the things I want to keep, these are the things I want to do more of? Or, you know, on the contrary, what were some things you were like, maybe we could do without that? Like, how did you kind of look at that and make decisions that informed your sequel?
Well, first off, I loved the first movie, and I loved the choices that Ruben Fleischer had made, and I think he you know, that the kind of the setting up of the origin story was done really well and expertly. And I think it's kind of interesting. One of the big challenges was for this second movie was tonally, where do we want to go? I mean, obviously we're dropping in at a very, you know, at a different stage of the evolution of the relationship between Eddie and Venom, but it's like that could go in so many different ways. But what was universally liked, and if you could pinpoint one moment in the first movie, I think that we all thought was the touchstone moment that represented the flavor of this movie, it was the lobster tank moment. You know, everyone loved when Eddie climbs into a lobster tank. He's feeling sick, he's hot, he's panicky, he gets in a middle of a restaurant, sits in a lobster tank and cools off, and then eats a lobster. And it's like that kind of humor, which is based in, you know, such a dysfunctional character who's going through a trauma, and the reality of that, but that level of slapstick and humor, that if you can combine those worlds so that you have real stakes and characters that you really care about and really, you know, want and root for, but at the same time you can then go way up into you know, with take the humor and the comedy as far as you can without breaking it and making it feel sort of self, you know, commenting on itself, where you don't really care about the characters anymore. You know, that was always the challenge for this. So that was one part. Obviously I was stepping into the situation when, like I say, where you're 2 years down the line, they've been living on top of each other. It is the 7-year itch or the odd couple phase of the relationship, and they're driving each other insane. They can't live with or without each other. But then so that was a great thing to unpack and explore. But then we had the you know, the intervention from the greatest nemesis character from Marvel Comics, as far as I can see, which is Carnage. You know, and so to devise that character, help devise that character, kind of sort of visually bring that character to life, change the palette of the movie, and also the ratio, the aspect ratio. We made, you know, I wanted a much taller frame, so that you could, when the two symbiotes come to fight each other, you know, there was space for them to do that. But crucially, the color of Carnage and the palette of the movie was very much more, I wanted it to be more saturated, and this is a big discussion that I had with Bob Richardson, amazing Academy Award winning DOP and very good friend of mine, Bob Richardson, who we talked a lot about, you know, how we expand this movie and give it all of its tones and colors and flavor, keeping it real by making the symbiotes feel they were really embedded into the environments. But primarily the color was driven by the color of Carnage and the bright red that was going to be going through this movie. I really wanted it, you know, to make that believable. I wanted everything else to up kind of. So the first film's quite monochromatic, really. It's quite you know, dark and gritty and quite monotone in many ways. And this I really wanted to bring color into it and let that play with all of the other tones of the movie.
Dude, I could listen to your process on these decisions like all day long. I find this stuff to be so interesting, and I love how thorough you are and how thoughtful you are in those, just in the color selection. I can imagine we're going to talk about a lot more than that, but I just find it so satisfying to hear you talk about these details like that. And Carnage, of course, you know, Spider-Man and Venom villain for decades now. He's been an Avengers level threat. He's been killed. He's been revived. He's been turned into a hero, and I think it was the Axis comic. He's been everything from comics to games to animation. Was there any one specific thing that stood out to you that you were like, this is the part of Carnage that I want to make sure we capture?
Yeah, it was really the physicality and the difference in physicality between Venom and Carnage. So that there's nothing straight about it. Everything is off kilter. It's very idiosyncratic, reflecting the sort of strange, twisted nature of Cletus Cassidy and amplifying that through his symbiote. I wanted, you know, it's like there's no straightforward blow. It's the whole way he moves. There's no sort of bipedal walk, really very little. There's a little bit, but not much bipedal walking of this character. He moves by using tendrils. He can transform. He's a shapeshifter. He weaponizes and you know, uses these. He's kind of much more like a creature that can literally shift his shape and turn into mist. He can change his whole molecular structure, turn into whirlwinds, turn into, you know, all of these different things. And that was, and so we went through, and I went through specifically lots of panels from all of the comics to break that down and see you know, where you can go, or where we wanted to go with that. And then worked very closely with our amazing visual effects team, headed up by Sheena Dougal, who you know, and then really kind of forensically went into how does the musculature work, what is the flesh kind of density. It feels like it's a combination of tough kind of crab-like shell on the outside and then soft sinewy sort of membrane, you know, which can be kind of glutinous and sort of, and, you know, we went into a lot of detail and looked at lots of reference to bring him to life in a real and frightening and sort of as I say, kind of amplifying the twisted nature of Cassidy's serial killer being.
Carnage looked awesome. I got it. Like Carnage looked so good. So you guys nailed it on that. And also, I mean, if everybody listening, we are talking spoilers, and this next question is very much a big spoiler question. So if you haven't seen Venom Let There Be Carnage yet, you're going to want to come back to the show after you've seen the movie. Highly recommend going to see the movie. But here we go. Speaking of bringing Carnage to life, we also kill him. You know what I mean? And it's funny to see the moment where Venom says what he said. I'm going to address that line next, but I want to hear first about the decision to have Cletus and Carnage killed off. Like I know those decisions can't be easy to make.
They can't, no, especially no, when you've got someone as titanic as Woody Harrelson playing a titanic character like Carnage. That it's not easy. I mean, the fact of the matter is, I always like to think there might just be that little bit of symbiote that didn't quite get devoured by Venom, and that could be hanging around, you know, in some baptismal font in the church that's just sort of swimming around. That could somehow come back to life. I always say, no, you know, no one ever dies, really. I mean,
and they ripped in the comics.
I'm still hoping Ulysses Claw's going to come back, for God's sake.
Yeah, I'm with you. Ulysses Claw is a gem in the MCU. We need you back. He's killed off screen. I'll say it a million times over until I see him killed on screen. I believe he can come back. But you know, Carnage has been killed and ripped in half in like space and left there, and then still came back. So anything's possible. It's, you know,
Correct.
It's comic book movie world. But also you use the F word in that scene, which is very rare for a Marvel movie, and I feel like that is almost equally tough to pull off. You know, what kind of hoops do you have to jump through to get Venom to use that language?
Well, you know, you're allowed. The authorities allow you to have, for a PG-13, you're allowed to have one F-bomb word, and so that's where we used it. We saved it for that particular moment. I think, you know, hopefully people will enjoy it. But just in terms of that, just sort of talking about ratings, you know, I know there were lots of calls for this film to be more R-rated and for Carnage to be an R-rated character. And I think what we've done in this movie is actually, it is darkly themed. And actually the character of Carnage is pretty violent, but hopefully you want this to be seen by a wide audience. You don't want to be exclusive, and you want it to be, you know, loved by lots of people. So you push it as far as you can. And I do think we've pushed the limits. So it feels like it's a lot older and darker than perhaps it is. And although it still adheres to all of the rules. So we you know, I think it does feel threatening and menacing and scary at times, and feels physically real and dark. So I do think, in terms of ratings, I think we have pushed the boundaries.
I think so. I think it's stuck a tongue down a dude's throat in a prison cell. I don't think that's something you see every day. I do love the Eddie and Venom breakup scene. Had me rolling, man. That was so funny when they were tearing the apartment apart, and Venom then goes and tears the motorcycle apart. Like, I thought that was hilarious. I loved. Did you like look at it? Was there any kind of rom-com inspiration to bring their relationship in that scene together? Did you look at anything else for that?
Well, you know, it is a sort of, we were riffing on those tropes, you know, so for sure, having the scene where we just thought it'd be fun to have the scene where all the clothes get thrown out of the window, you know, and, you know, this is my house, and, you know, in countless movies, you know, we were referencing that, of course, but this between a symbiote and, you know, a very narcissistic, screwed up, dysfunctional human being. So and that grew, actually. That really evolved throughout on the page when we first started working on that really started sort of, that is one of the scenes that really did evolve into this big set piece that was originally at one line of kind of, you know, Venom slaps Eddie or something like that, and then it literally grew and grew and grew. We realized there was lots of fertile ground for humor, and actually it was important that it had reached this cataclysmic moment where they can't be together, you know, and so there was fun in that.
That was a lot of fun. And then that leads to Venom at the Rave, and I want to know, like, technically, that had to be one of the most difficult VFX shots. I'm guessing. I don't know, but you light up Venom in this setting with glow sticks and everything, and I'm like, how that couldn't have been easy. I would love to hear about, you know, did you have somebody like on stilts, you know, to get the light down? How did you like bring that to life?
Well, look, this is where we have the most incredible CG team working, and as I say, the most brilliant visual effects supervisor, Sheena Dougal, who's an expert in. She really understands light and integration, to your point, and Bob Richardson. So the combination of lighting it well, and we did actually have a physical person on set who was there to be Venom, and a really tall guy, and on top of his shoulders he wore an actual fantastically realistic, reflective, in terms of the sliminess of Venom, like a hairpiece which took his height to the right height of Venom, which is 7.
Listen, if you guys need a house for that thing, I'll give you my, just send me the Venom head. It'll be on the display right here behind me. But sorry, go ahead.
Okay. But that was the lighting reference, and then we were able to drape it in glow sticks to so that we could get the real light reflecting onto the things that surround it. But then it all gets taken into CG world and put together, But that was, again, one of the big ambitions was to shoot Venom and Carnage, so that we weren't, they're quite, I always say that they're sort of quite unforgiving in their designs as comic book characters, because they're so larger than life. It's not like any other CG character in a way. Their colors and their scale and their size and their big mouths and the eyes, to get expression, they really had to act. They really had to act in this movie, and so with Bob, we had a lot of discussions about shooting very shallow focus, so that the drop, the drop off was felt intentional, and that you weren't just celebrating these CG characters when they came, like, no, I'm a CG character, when they come on, that they really blended into the environments, and that was something that we were all very mindful of.
Yeah, I do want to talk about some of the teases that you leave for possible future stories, starting with Patrick Mulligan and his eyes kind of lighting up and he whispers monsters. We know, comic fans know he might go on to become Toxin. Is that kind of like, is that when you put that tease in there, is that with hope of a Venom 3 that you can do a story like that? Like, what kind of stuff are you thinking about when you drop that in there?
100%. I mean, it's, I think there's so much potential in the Venomverse. For really interesting journeys before the kind of the inevitable happens, which hopefully, if there are any more movies and people go to the cinemas, please, people go into the cinemas, please, and have the confidence to go back, because it's these fan screenings that we've been having have been amazing. Actually, it's just seeing people back in the cinemas has been incredible. So yeah, I mean, I think if the appetite's there, I do think there's a wealth of stories that could possibly even happen before you get anywhere near the inevitable. I'm not even going to say it.
Well, I think that might lead me to my next question. I got to talk about this post-credits scene. And I mean, the reactions to this post-credit scene has been insane. People are losing their minds. It is, as Tom Hardy put it when I spoke to him about Venom and Spider-Man in our interview. He said wish fulfillment, I think, is it what he called it. So listen, I first want to hear your perspective of what happens in that scene with the hotel room. Like, what was kind of the direction you wanted to take it? Like, how would you describe that scene?
It's basically we wanted to leave the audience knowing that they are these universes are going to somehow collide, and we wanted to do it in such a way that it still leaves so much open, and we're not timing anything. We're not, the way of tying them together meant that there's still potential for, they're literally, the portal is not being crossed fully, but it's opening up more questions, I suppose, rather than so firmly saying. I mean, that was the intention of it. Right. To it is a tease. It's a tease in the fullest sense of the word.
It's a really good tease. And I'm so curious, because I know, like, when you become part of this big puzzle and these things all fit together, one thing leads to the next, you have to collaborate. Like the room changing, like when you kind of have to develop the look of how the room is going to change. Did you have to collaborate with other people as such moments may happen for other characters in the future? Like, as like the multiverse blows open in all of these different franchises, Like, was there a collaboration? Was there kind of directors and producers working together to make sure things matched up?
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly lots of discussion about exactly, what material can be shown. There was a lot of fine detail discussion involved in that, for sure, definitely.
Yeah. And so in theory then, Eddie and Venom could go have another adventure somewhere else, and then they could come back for Venom 3 in this universe we've been following and like just kind of continue on, right? I mean, that's how the multiverse, right? Is, in your opinion, is that how the multiverse works? I think.
No, exactly that.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's cool. That's cool. Listen, people are fired up about that, so I think that's you guys knocked it out of the park on that credit scene. I want to go back to Carnage Carnage, Venom and Eddie's relationship, because in comics this is a relationship that they actually have a little symbiote baby together. And in this movie, they kind of, I think they make the reference to it that they have their first child here in Carnage by accident because, that is a product of Venom. Did you ever was that kind of like a wink and a nod, or do you think that that's something that you could still do in the future?
Oh, no, it was definitely. I mean, I think we were definitely out there saying that. It is. The fact of the matter, and this goes back to sort of Venom wanting. He actually really loves Anne. He really is fond of Anne, and he wants them to get back together because he wants his bloodline to continue. So he's thinking 2, 3, 4, 10 steps ahead of the game. Venom is, but no, I really love the notion that Carnage is the spawn of Venom, and we really wanted to, there is a lot more fertile ground to be had there, I think.
Oh yeah, listen, if fatherhood was easy, everybody would do it. You know what I mean? Like, sometimes you raise a Carnage. Yeah. I also want to talk about Shriek, and Shriek in comics is a mutant character, and I think we kind of told them. I don't know like how rights and all that stuff falls on these things in movies, but you get to use Shriek in a lot of ways that are her character from comics in the film. Was there any kind of like limitation on what you could or couldn't do because of the mutant aspect of Shriek?
Well, we were very keen to kind of locate her in, as she is in the comics, go into her background. I think that was the route, because really, when you look thematically at what our movie's about, it's a lot to do with the dysfunctionality of early childhood and being brought up in a less than loving environment. And so there's Eddie's Eddie is responsible for the relationship. His mother died on giving birth to him, so that sets up the relationship with him and his father. That's the connection that Cletus has with him in terms of his terrible upbringing, the brutalization of him as a young child. And the same with Shriek. She's bullied and ostracized and made to feel worthless, and become in the comics she's a drug addict, and so it was important for us to set up that the ground rules of all of those characters as real emotions and real journeys that then you can springboard off and go into the humor, all of the other stuff, but to have all of those ground rules truly reflect the comic, what's in the comics was very important when Kelly and Tom were writing the script.
So if Sony and Marvel were to say, we love it, we want to go with Venom 3, how long will it take you to bring it to the world? How much time do you need from the jump to delivery?
Well, this one, they started working on this pretty much immediately as Venom 1 came out, and it was a success. So that's, I think the thing is, I think Kelly and Tom have been thinking about what is the next stage of the journey anyway. They would have had some plans for where they could possibly go after this. It's yet to be formalized, but I know that they've certainly had discussions about where.
Right. Well,
you've got to when you're going into a franchise, you've got to think about the arc. Of course, you can't think about them just individually.
Oh yeah, and I know us fans, we appreciate when you plant those seeds. Those are the things that we pick up on, that we're like, oh, I want to see this grow, I want to see this blossom, things like that. So, and you guys did that really nicely. And a couple other things I want to talk to you about before I let you go. I mentioned earlier, I love your portrayal of Claw. I think Claw in the MCU is one of my favorite villains Marvel Studios has ever delivered. I wish we had more of him. Dude, he's so good. You're so energized in that role. And you brought it back for What If recently. How was it? How was it slipping back into the character for a voice role?
It was, yeah. I mean, it's kind of, well, it's kind of interesting seeing it in a different format. You know, it's really, it kind of, I love it. I mean, I think it looks, I think it looks really great in that world. It looks really, really cool.
Yeah, I hope that one way or another, the multiverse allows us to see you as that character more and more. And dude, you're just one of the most talented people. I've I remember watching kind of your lessons on how to do the Gollum voice. I think it was on one of the Tonight shows or Jimmy Kimmel Live or something. I was just like, man, he makes it look so easy. That stuff's incredible, dude. So watching you bring that character to life and bring this movie to life. And next, one of the next movies we're going to see you bring to life is Alfred in the Batman. And I'm sure you can't say much about that, but how has that experience been? You've been a part of all these franchises, dude. You're just collecting them like Infinity Stones.
I feel so blessed. I mean, I feel so lucky to have been able to play in all of these amazing, in all these worlds. It's. I don't know. I never ever thought that I would be in this position where I've been able to play kind of such, I suppose, different characters and go into the worlds and exist in these different. It's been an extraordinary journey so far, and hopefully it'll continue. And I'm enjoying doing more. I'm loving directing, and I want to do much more of that. So a combination of acting and directing for sure. I'm not going to stop acting, but I'm really enjoying this part of the journey at the moment. Sort of bringing, working with so many talented people and bringing these stories together. Getting
to bring your vision, I bet, is really fulfilling.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do have an Alfred question for you. You're Alfred. This is a character that we've seen iterations of in the past, all very different. We've had Jeremy Irons, who's like super hands-on. You have Michael Caine, who is a mentor early on and kind of stays behind the scenes. How does your Alfred stack up? What kind of originality did you bring to it?
Well, I can't. I look, in all honesty, I can't talk about it. But what I will say is that I know that Matt Reeves's film is going to be an extraordinary version of the Batman. I mean, it really is. He's such an incredible filmmaker, and I know that he has worked so long and hard, and it's going to be. I think it's going to blow people away. I really do, and I really don't want to spoil it for anybody. But
that's totally fair. I respect it, because that ends up being the headline everywhere if you say anything about it, and I respect you playing it safe. So last thing for you. If Spider-Man and Venom collide, who you got?
Look, I think it's going to be messy, whichever way it turns out. I would hate. I fear for Spider-Man, quite frankly. Listen, I do fear for him.
I just saw Venom take down Carnage. That's no easy feat. So Spidey, I also saw Tom talking about he's got his little Spidey legs hanging out of his mouth. Tom wants to eat Spider-Man. So.
I know.
Listen, Andy, it is an absolute privilege to speak with you. Thank you so much for coming on, and congrats on the movie, man. It's a lot of fun.
Oh, thanks, man. I'm glad you enjoyed it. All right. Listen, I look forward to seeing you again sometime.
Look forward to it. Thank you.
All right, man.